Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet, you know?
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean?
Everybody did a good job, and the internet's full of a bunch of people who don't know anything about the subject matter, who are just talking out of their backside, according to Bill Burr, who is a comedian that is completely talking out of his backside. Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta talk about the establishment's new favorite comedian, Bill Burr, running defense for the Democratic Party, and specifically during the California wildfires, as he says that, oh, all these idiots on the internet don't know nothing about the subject matter, and in reality, California government officials did an absolutely excellent job fighting these wildfires, therefore, all of you internet people need to shut up. And of course, Bill Burr's expertise on the subject matter is completely non-existent. He just has decided that for a while, too many people that were right-leaning liked his comedy, so he's going out of his way to undercut those people, to say, you're not allowed to laugh at my jokes, how dare you, you absolute scumbags. So I'm going to defend the most ridiculous, terrible performance by the Democrats and pass it off as if it is some kind of high-minded critique of the critics. Absurd in every possible way, but I will remind you that there are real consequences to these California wildfires. My friend Devin Tracy, his parents lost their homes in this particular fire, and he is currently raising money via GoFundMe in order to help them get back on their feet. The link to that will be in the top of the description. If you can support them, please do. If you can't or don't want to, I totally understand. No pressure.
Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet, you know?
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean? And then just, I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds. You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
So Bill Burr kicks this off by saying, like we showed in the open, that everybody did a good job, and you have all these different fire experts complaining about how come they didn't fly a helicopter into the ocean in order to get the water, in order to dump it on the fire. Now, of course, this is a criticism Bill Burr basically made up. I'm sure some idiots on the internet somewhere were making this point or trying to make this point, but in reality, in actuality, you don't have to be a fire expert to understand that the water reservoir that was covering the Pacific Palisades was decommissioned due to the fact that they needed to repair a tear in the cover of that reservoir. That repair should have taken a week to complete. It was decommissioned in February of 2024. Fast forward to January of 2025, almost a full year later, and that repair is still not done.
This was supposed to be the water to put out the Palisades fire. This is the Santa Ynez Reservoir. It's the water supply basically for the Palisades. When they first started fighting the Palisades fire, they ran out of water extremely quickly. Wednesday, 3 a.m., they were basically out. And there's been a lot of talk on why this happened. So how long has this reservoir been empty for?
Since February of last year. There was no communication from the Department of Water and Power to LAFD that there was a water supply issue.
The firefighters, when they started fighting the fires, no one informed them that the reservoir was empty. This reservoir holds 117 million gallons of water. The fire department was using a water supply from 3 backup tanks, each one only holding 1 million gallons of water.
The water reservoir is still empty, and guess what? The fire hydrants were running out of water due to the fact that they didn't have adequate pressure. The reason why they didn't have adequate pressure is because instead of the 117 million gallons that were in that reservoir that could have been used in order to mitigate the damage, they only had 3 1 million gallon backup tanks. And guess what? 40 times the water, you don't have to be a fire expert, Bill Burr, in order to understand this, is better than 40 times less the water when you're trying to fight a fire. And again, there's no accountability from California government officials. Gavin Newsom said, all the reservoirs are full, no big deal, nothing to worry about. And then when he was pressed on this specific reservoir, all of a sudden he switched it up and said, oh, well, that's why I ordered into an investigation into why this one was empty. Don't believe me? Here's the clip right here.
President-elect Trump has blamed you for this crisis. He called you incompetent. What's your response?
Well, I called for him to come out, take a look for himself.
himself. We want to do it in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist. He's the president-elect. I respect the office. We have a president of the United States that within 36 hours provided a major disaster declaration over a text. We had support from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, with 100% reimbursement, all the resources you could hope for or imagine, constant communication. I'd like to extend that to the president-elect. I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full of the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them. Every elected official that he disagrees with, very familiar with them.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation to understand what was happening with that local reservoir.
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA, sitting there in his underwear.
This is definitely mismanaged. Do you guys get the comedy there? Bill Burr's doing a voice. The voice is the comedy right there. And then he says a guy in his underwear who doesn't know anything that he's talking about. I mean, you would really have to think yourself some kind of magical, crazy fire expert to believe that water can put out fire, and having more water when fire comes would help you mitigate the damage of that fire. Idiot in your underwear. Obviously, Bill Burr knows better than all of us that almost a year of a repair that should have taken a week is not mismanagement of that reservoir, because Karen Bass, the Democratic politician that he's trying to defend here, and Gavin Newsom, they're the bestest people of all time, so saith the genius in fire expertise, Bill Burr. Now, I will also point out that it was mismanaged in other ways. First and foremost, we're talking about clearing the brush that is in the forest that ends up becoming a tinderbox that ends up leading to these blazes getting completely out of control. This is something that California Democrats have been criticized repeatedly for, and guess what? Gavin Newsom was caught lying about forest mitigation techniques by NPR. Again, not a right-wing conspiracy theorist or anything of the sort, when he said that he was managing 90,000 acres when in reality it was less than 12,000 acres.
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA, sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
But guess what? Bill Burr just said mismanage in a voice, so I guess that doesn't count at all. But to give you an idea of how insane the wildfire stuff is in California, get a load of this lawsuit that was filed by an environmental group in order to protect a plant when they were trying to change the poles that hold up the power lines from wood to steel. So in 2019, the LA Department of Water and Power began replacing nearly 100-year-old power line poles cutting through the Topanga State Park when the project was halted within days by conservationists outraged that federally endangered Bronton's milk veg plant may be tampered with during the process. Now again, the goal of the project was to improve fire safety in the Pacific Palisades area, which is the area where the fire was most devastating, by replacing the wooden pole with steel. They also wanted to widen fire access lanes and installed wind and fire resistant power lines after the area was identified as having an elevated level of risk. But after an amateur botanist hiking through the park during the work saw the harm done to some of the park's milk vetch, a flowering shrub with only a few thousand specimens remaining in the wild, and complained, the project was completely halted, Courthouse News Service reported. Instead of fire hardening the park, the city, which the state said had undertaken the work without proper permitting, ended up paying $2 million in fines and was ordered by the California Coastal Commission to reverse the whole project and replant the rare herb. The work saved almost 200 milk vetch plants, almost all of which have likely been torched in the wildfires that consumed Topanga Canyon, along with nearly 24,000 acres, aka 37 square miles, of some of LA's most sought after real estate. So yeah, in 2019, they actually identified this area as a high risk factor for the wildfires. Again, the Pacific Palisades fire is the largest and most damaging and most deadly of all the different LA wildfires that we're seeing ongoing right now. They decided that they were going to execute this project where they modernized the power lines because power companies have caused a bunch of these fires with outdated infrastructure, widened fire lanes and do all these different various things in order to, again, address the risk of wildfires. This is 5 years in advance. However, the state of California, based on the complaint for one person, decided to sue them, make them pay a fine, and reverse the project in order to save the milk vet, which, guess what, burned up like everything else. But Bill Burr is going to say, this was mismanaged, comes from just people in their underwear.
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA.
Again, Bill, you have a superficial understanding of all of this. You're saying that people are just looking at the footage, when in reality, what's actually happening is people are looking at the court documents. People are understanding what went wrong in the lead up to this particular fire. And yes, we get basic things like 40 times more water would have been more helpful in fighting said fires. In addition to that, while Bill Burr is simping for Karen Bass, while he's worshiping the ground that she walks on, because oh my god, first black woman to ever be elected to mayor in the city of Los Angeles, Rick Caruso, the opponent of Karen Bass, actually shows what happens when you have intelligence, when you actually have a level of preparation that you can engage with problems, because 2 days before Karen Bass pieced out in order to go to Ghana, ignoring all the different various fire warnings that were delivered to her as the mayor of Los Angeles, Rick Caruso hired private firefighters. They brought their own water tanks, by the way, so they weren't even tapping the fire hydrants, and he was able to protect and preserve his property. This is a good manager. This is somebody with foresight. This is somebody who understands what is going on, and Californians, or Angelinos to be more accurate, nearly could have had him as the mayor, but unfortunately, they chose black girl magic over white competence, and it turns out white competence wins each and every time, twice on Sunday, and by the way, 10x whenever there's a fire. So yeah, Bill Burr is just running defense for the Newsom administration, running defense for Karen Bass, when we've seen time and time again, they've completely bungled this. Again, there's all this talk about the $17 million cut from the firefighters, and people counteract that by saying, no, actually, after the negotiations with said firefighters, they ended up adding $50 million to the budget. But again, it's not the budgeting, it's not the dollar amount that is the main issue, it's how the money was spent. That $17 million was cut, which is what it's always cut from repairs for the fire trucks, from things that prep in terms of fire mitigation, and what was added in the $50 million was salaries, upgraded pensions, upgraded healthcare, and all that stuff from the collective bargaining agreement. So you have almost all the money that you would need in order to handle this appropriately. However, it's completely misallocated, and I'm not saying firefighters don't deserve a good pay or anything of the sort. They take a risky job, and a lot of them performed very bravely in the LA fires, but the fact of the matter is, giving them amazing pensions and amazing healthcare at the expense of maintaining the equipment that they use to fight fires completely defeats the purpose, again, of having a fire department. But again, Bill Burr is going to say, mismanage, oh, guy in his underwear on the internet, what does he know? Bill, what do you know? What are you talking about? You know absolutely nothing, and you're embarrassing in every way. And again, I've seen a lot of people saying Bill Burr is speaking truth to power. No, he's not. He's worshiping at the altar of Democratic power, and then he's saying ridiculous and absurd things later on that people are like fighting against the establishment, when in reality, he couldn't be more ignorant, he couldn't be more stupid, he couldn't be more wrong.
And I love how all the chatter out there is about bands of illegal immigrants and homeless people lighting fires. They light fires every day. They're living outside. They're cold. And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and then we have a hang glider.
Again, Bill is just making stuff up. There is no theory that some homeless guy went from Altadena to the Pacific Palisades or anything of the sort. However, there was a homeless illegal immigrant who was arrested with a torch in hand by a community for setting fires. In fact, he wasn't charged with the setting fires because California is ridiculous and absurd, but he was arrested on multiple different probation and parole violations, open warrants, and yes, 100% there are people setting fires, and setting fires during an already tense fire situation is absolutely disastrous. But again, establishment Bill right here, sucking up to the criminals, sucking up to the illegals. We have to deny crime at all costs, pretend that there's a crazy conspiracy theory about one guy doing this when nobody's alleging that, because Bill Burr, again, is on the establishment train. The only thing you're allowed to do is blame climate change. You can use that as the catch-all excuse for never preparing for these wildfires, the catch-all excuse for having those reservoirs empty, and Bill Burr is parroting those points because he's an absolute doofus. Now, I also want to point out that while the Democrats were cutting from, maintenance and things that keep fire trucks on the road, they were working on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and they released a promo where they had the second in command for the Los Angeles Fire Department say, well, if your husband gets stuck in a burning building and is not able to be carried out by a firefighter because we prioritize hiring overweight women, that's his problem for getting himself into that situation. Don't believe me? Let me play the clip right here.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Again, absurd, insane, and Bill Burr defends all of this. That's who he is.
And they're talking about looting, but CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes. Free Luigi!
So Bill Burr calls out the insurance companies for keeping people's premiums and never paying out any damage and giving them bonuses, which again is just basic bitch, low IQ commentary related to the insurance industry. Maybe it's a bit of a red flag when State Farm and all these different insurers say, hey, this area is really dangerous. We can't insure them because it's such a fire risk. And then politicians don't do anything to mitigate that fire risk. They don't tend to the forest. They don't actually continue projects in order to protect the power lines from igniting fires in those forests. Maybe that's a bit of a big red flag, because they say nobody could have seen this coming when the insurance companies all saw this coming in unison and they all decided that they were not in any way, shape, or form going to allow this to emerge or allow this to happen without, dropping the coverage or trying to raise the premiums. And of course, stupid California laws prevented them from being able to do so, so they ended up pulling out of the market. And I will just ask you, do you think it would have been better for homeowners to have the options to pay the elevated premiums for full coverage or pay a lower premium but not have full coverage and get something back after everything that they had was wiped out? I think that would be a much better option than what California did, but Bill Burr doesn't want to talk about that. And of course, he says free Luigi, which is a reference to Luigi Mangione, who is the cold-blooded murderer who killed the United Healthcare CEO in a completely unjustified action. But supposedly, oh my god, that guy, he was fighting for us against the evil health insurance industry because they deny paying for your medical procedures, even though Luigi didn't get his medical procedures denied. But I will just point out to everybody out there in the audience that supports this guy, right, left, and center, that A, you're completely wrong and immoral. But B, if it's okay to kill someone who works at a health insurance company, whether they be the CEO or even somebody else, because they refuse to pay for your medical procedure, is it also okay to murder a doctor because he refused to perform the procedure for free? I mean, I'm just asking the question. I just want to know what the limiting principle on a cold-blooded murder like the one engaged in by Luigi Mangione is. And again, I will point out that this is Bill Burr's supposed appeal to the people, as he says, oh, free this murderer, free this completely unjustified guy. I'm with you. I'm just like you. As we all know, Bill Burr never has to worry about medical expenses. And again, he just spent this whole entire time running defense from the most establishment politicians that you could possibly have, the California Democratic Party. One party rule, and this guy's distracting you from it, and people are pretending like this is A-plus commentary on the left. And what a coincidence, all of those people want to deflect away from Karen Bass and away from Gavin Newsom to other things to avoid talking about their failures. So to be clear, Bill Burr's a comedian. What he says should not matter, but unfortunately, a lot of different people are pretending like this is stage commentary, and in reality, that is just not the facts. In reality, this is just regurgitated MSNBC talking points said in a voice like this with a couple of swear words peppered in, and it is in no way, shape, or form anti-establishment or anything of the sort, as it is a complete and utter obedience to the establishment, along with a little bit of pandering as it relates to the Luigi Mangione case, and that's completely absurd and ridiculous. But I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Bill Burr carrying water for the Democratic Party. Till next time.